video, I'm going to be reading a critical analysis of the Executive Success Program of NXIVM, or ESP. There's a link below where you can read the article. It's written by Paul Martin, PhD. Executive Success Programs by Keith Raniere is a series of high-intensity, high-demand workshops that are designed to, quote, actualize human potential. A selection of promotional material dated January 30th, 2001, entitled, quote, Executive Success Program, ESP, reads, quote, our schools designed to change the way people think, make decisions, react, and perform in various areas of life. All of ESP's programs are designed to help individuals develop the emotional and intellectual skills necessary to reach their maximum potential in all areas of life. Rational inquiry is a science based on the belief that the more consistent a person is in their thinking, the more successful the individual will be. In the same promotional sheet, there's a paragraph entitled, Why Should I Do This? Meaning, why should a person take ESP? Raniere writes, all adults have disintegrations because when we are children learning to be adults and learning about the world, our perspective was based on perception, intellect, and wisdom of a small child. These lessons become the foundation of our whole adult reality. There has never been a vehicle in our society that allowed us to go through and re-examine these beliefs and reincorporate them now from an adult perspective. Until now, rational inquiry is that vehicle. It is the systematic, introspective science that provides us with the necessary tools for human transformation. A key motto of ESP is, quote, we teach everything nobody else teaches, end quote. And everything they do, ESP claims that students will reach, quote, their full potential with the program. Raniere claims to have devised a, quote, radical new technology to create an unprecedented success program. It is a total personal and professional development system. ESP can be further defined by looking at the 12-point mission statement of ESP. The first point is, quote, success is an internal state of clear, honest knowledge of what I am, my value in the world, and my responsibility for the way I react to all things. The second point is, quote, there are no ultimate victims. Therefore, I will not choose to be a victim. The information gleaned from ESP seminars is to be kept confidential. There is a pledge to purge oneself of all parasites and envy-based habits. There is a pledge to control as much of the money of the world as possible with each student's success plan. In fact, it is essential for the survival of the world for as much money of the world to be controlled by ethical people, by implication, graduates of ESP. The mission statement says, quote, a world of successful people will be people, a better world a world of successful people will be people, a better world indeed, a world devoid of hunger, theft, dishonesty, envy, and insecurity. People will no longer try to destroy each other, steal from each other, down each other, or rejoice at another's demise. Success, ethics, and integrity are co-inspirational. I pledge to share and enroll people in ESP and its mission for myself and to help make the world a better place to live. In a workshop session called Mission, the reader is further enlightened as to the purpose of ESP. How does understanding ESP's integrated matrix help us determine destructive patterns of human behavior and give us clues as to what is to come? We are now at the highest level of technological advancement in human history. The lifestyle current technology affords us has never existed before on the planet. Human civilization has had rises and falls for centuries, yet It is our belief humanity cannot survive another fall. All members of the human team must understand the historic reasons behind this tendency so that we can change it and survive. We believe that this is the ultimate cause because it means our existence and all our causes and our existence depends on this knowledge. The mission of ESP is to develop an integrated ethical framework of human experience to stop the destruction of value in the world and move humanity forward. The practice sessions explains ESP's mission and gives students a clear knowledge of how and why to act to change historic trends. ESP training is offered through workshops called intensives, and they're offered 3-day or weekend or 16-day intensives. The 16-day course starts at 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily with lunch and dinner breaks. Tuition cost is $7,500 to $6,000 to $2,700 for a 5-day, and a 3-day is $1,200. There's also an ethics training for coaches, and students are required to wear sashes, which signify rank. A white sash is a student status, and stripes reflect levels of certification and practice, and the orange sash is the highest rank. ESP intensives then lay out the mechanics of how the student is to achieve all the success promised by ESP. This process is accomplished through a series of topics presented through intensive sessions. Ranieri places great emphasis on the psychological concept of projection. However, according to ESP, until now there has never been a concise explanation of how this complex process works. The intensive includes 3 stages of human evolution in which, according to Ranieri, human beings are born parasitic, unable to take care of themselves. They depend on others for their very survival. As adult parasites' strategies, quote, keep people dependent on others and lower self-esteem. Many examples of parasite behavior are present, such as complaining about pain and suffering and saying, I'm hungry. Or, I know I promised, but I had no idea how hard or painful this was going to be. The point here, according to ESP, is that parasites try to avoid responsibility simply because they tried so hard. The program spells out a new version of good and bad. Here is a sampling from the workshop. When we were little children, we learned bad when someone yelled no or that's bad, stop. We learned good when we were rewarded in some way. This sort of learning is inconsistent and limiting, because in order to have a full understanding of each concept, we would have to examine every example of good and every example of bad. This practice session affords you the opportunity to reevaluate your definitions of these vital concepts to form a solid foundation for the future. In the course of the program, normal terms such as good and bad are redefined. Good becomes pro-survival and bad counter-survival or destructive of value. Rules, according to ESP, are fear-based and ethics are internalized. ESP then adds the element of a motivational track where students are taught to practice certain motivational states such as toward, which is patterns that, quote, focus directly on goals and objectives. When people are utilizing toward patterns, their effort and attention moves them to get, obtain, and achieve something as a result of desire. Other concepts covered in the motivational section include away from patterns that focus directly on circumstances to avoid or trigger, a stimulus response mechanism used to bring back an emotional state, the motivational state at will. Now this is the analysis. ESP makes some bold and unique claims about what it wants to accomplish and what it is. In summary, the following list presents many of the salient points of the ESP program. Number 1, it is designed to help individuals develop the emotional and intellectual skills necessary to reach their maximum potential in all areas of life. 2, ESP is a science based in the belief of more consistent a person is in their thinking, the more successful the individual will be. 3, all adults have disintegrations because when we were children learning to be adults and learning about the world, our perspective was based on perception, intellect, and wisdom of a small child. 4, there has never been a vehicle in our society that allowed us to go through and re-examine these beliefs and reincorporate them. Now, from an adult perspective, until now, rational inquiry is that vehicle. It is a systematic, introspective science that provides us with necessary tools for human transformation. 5, there are no ultimate victims. 6, the information gleaned from ESP seminars is to be kept confidential. 7, there is a pledge to control as much of the money of the world as possible within each student's success plan. In fact, it is essential to the survival of the world for as much money of the world to be controlled by ethical people. 8, it is our belief that humanity cannot survive another fall. All members of the human team must understand the historic reasons behind this tendency so we can change it and survive. We believe this is the ultimate cause because it means our existence and all our causes and our existence depend on this knowledge. Mission of ESP is to develop and integrate ethical framework of human experience and stop the destruction of value in the world and move humanity forward. The practice sessions explains ESP's mission and gives students a clear knowledge of how and why to act and to change historic trends. Okay, the first point analysis deals with the claim that ESP will provide tools or training that will help people reach their maximum potential in all areas of life. What does this mean? What is maximum potential? Are there scientific measures for maximum potential? Does, quote, all areas of life extend to health benefits? Would those taking the training have less cancer, less heart disease? Do ESP graduates have better marriages, happier children? The point is that the use of the phrase, quote, all areas of life and, quote, maximum potential appear promising, but the phrases demand defining. Otherwise, they are phrases without practical, concrete application. Further, how does Raniere know? What evidence has he provided? Having a hotel conference rooms filled with happy attendees is not proof that the programs have achieved maximum potential in all areas of life. It may be proof that there are people in the room. Some may be happy to be there. Some may want to leave. Some may have benefited in some areas of their lives. Some may have seen a decline in aspects in other areas of their lives. The point is that the area is open to empirical investigation. There are no independent studies demonstrating that ESP can support these claims. The second point is the claim that ESP is a science. Raniere says it is, but that does not make it so. Science must meet certain requirements. There is nothing in the published scientific literature about ESP, nor has an exhaustive search of the psychological literature base shown any publications by Keith Raniere. The third area for analysis concerns the fact that the adults have perceptual distortions called disintegrations, developed from childhood. He too was a child and was likewise a casualty of perceptual distortions. This presents a problem for Raniere. How did he overcome these distortions? By what measure would one judge that Raniere is free of distortions? How did Raniere know there were distortions? How does Raniere know that every child suffers from these distortions? Did he do a study of every child on earth? Such a study is clearly impossible. Therefore, how does he know this truth? Unfortunately, the workshop participants appear to have to accept these claims by faith. But this faith is a far cry from scientific claims of ESP that Raniere asserts. The fourth area is an extension of the third, namely, that not only do all humans have distortions or disintegrations, but no one has ever developed a mechanism to examine these disintegrations and correct them. Again, the attendees must rely on Raniere's word alone. Of course, one must assume the truth of the disintegrations to then assume that Raniere has also scanned all the, quote, vehicles in our society to see if any one group, individual, or system has re-examined the faulty beliefs or disintegrations held by the world's masses. Raniere apparently has provided no evidence that he has done such analysis, and if he has, it would be a monumental undertaking. Number 5 maintains that, quote, there are no ultimate victims. What does this mean? How far do we take human responsibility? Is a raped woman somewhat responsible for her rape? Is a battered wife somewhat responsible for her battering? Is an employee subject to a mean, dishonest boss somehow not a victim? Are slaves in some manner not victims? Are those hit and hopelessly crippled by a drunk driver not victims? Are those accidentally paralyzed by the slip of a surgeon's knife not victims? What does Raniere have to say to this? The normal definition of victim, according to Oxford Dictionary of the English Language, is, quote, a person harmed, injured, or killed as a result of a crime or accident, and a person who is tricked or duped. Common observation teaches us that there are victims. ESP appears to make victimhood seem unnatural as sensing the brisk chill on one's cheek on the morning of the first autumn frost. The sixth area of analysis concern the need to keep the ESP material confidential, and by extension invite people to attend ESP intensives where they pay to receive this information. Clearly, Mr. Raniere has intellectual property rights if he so desires. Most of his material has a patent pending and copyright at the bottom of the printed materials. He certainly has the right for his students not to distribute the material, copy it, or sell it. But the ESP mission statement says, quote, the methods and information I learn in ESP are for my use only. I will not speak of them or in any way give others knowledge of them outside ESP. Part of the condition of being accepted into ESP is to keep all its information confidential. If I violate this, I am breaking a promise and breaching my contract, but more importantly, I am compromising my inner honesty and integrity. This segment of the mission statement appears to stretch beyond the intent of what might be covered by copyright and intellectual property rights. The confidentiality issue seems to approach a gag order. Why? What is the harm in some general discussion about your workshop? In fact, what would be the harm if you have invested so much time in these intensives and share some general observations about them with your wife, mother, or boss? The prohibition on sharing may serve as a wedge between those who have taken the courses and those who have not. This confidentiality issue may put pressure on people who enroll loved ones just so they can talk again. Perhaps the actual answer is not as important as the question why. Why is it necessary? It would seem that some of the pressure on the copyright issue would be taken off if Raniere published some tapes, wrote a few articles, or wrote a book. Then people could blab all they wanted about his book, tapes, and articles, and it would answer the nagging question, why? But if Raniere isn't interested in selling tapes, then there may be a problem elsewhere. Number 7 is simply breathtaking. That ESP graduates need to make as much money as possible and control as much money as possible in order to save the world from destruction. A modest proposal and a humble one as well. History has shown that the ethic of seeking wealth is as a risky one at best. Especially one that tells us to control as much as possible, as much of the wealth in the world. Power corrupts. Wealth also tends to corrupt. How did Raniere a la Vanguard divine such truth? On face value, any proposal that suggests that a group of graduates from a human potential seminar should control as much money, wealth, and resources of the world as possible in order to save the world seems to come leaping out of the pages of a James Bond novel. Here Bond is summoned by M, and the file is given to him about a madman, a Keith Raniere, who has trained over 400,000 followers who are now rapidly accumulating most of the world's wealth. ESP followers have plans of, quote, controlling as much of the wealth, money, and resources of the world as possible. I'm sure someone of importance will look at Raniere. His claims are not benign. Either they must be taken seriously that he has developed a science and therefore he must come up with the corresponding proof. So far he has not. Or is he the leader of one of the largest human potential growth enterprises devoid of scientific proof? If his claims are bogus, then it is likely that he is a person with a serious mental problem and or a con man with a very grand and perhaps not so benevolent schemes. Number 8 continues with the 7th theme, quote, it is our mission that humanity cannot survive another fall. All members of the human team must understand the historic reasons behind this tendency so we can change it and survive. We believe this is the ultimate cause because it means our existence and all our causes, and our existence depends on this knowledge. The mission of ESP is to develop an integrated ethical framework of human experience to stop the destruction of value in the world and move humanity forward. This practice session explains ESP's mission and gives students a clear knowledge of how and why to act to change historic trends. The same arguments and analysis applied to number 7 applies to number 8. However, not only is ESP interested in wealth and power, the knowledge that ESP possesses is essential for the survival of humanity. What Moses and all the true prophets throughout the ages of human history could not do, Raniere claims he can do. It now appears that Raniere has developed an ethical framework, quote, to stop the destruction of value in the world and move humanity forward. This appears nothing short of a religion, a system that has answers to the problems of life. Some meta-analysis is in order. The mission and other promotional material that I have cited from ESP bear 2 similarities to other types of groups. First, the Dr. Robert J. Lifton describes a concept he calls sacred science. ESP portrays the characteristics of sacred science in the following ways. First, there is a quote, ultimate moral vision for the ordering of human existence. Then there seems to be little room for questioning of basic assumptions. Raniere cleverly redefines cult in an attempt to deflect questions about his organization. Next, there is a demand in a sacred science for a, quote, reverence for the originators of the world. A comparison with the readings of ESP can clearly see the emphasis paid on tribute, and especially tribute to vanguard. Sacred science makes the claim of airtight scientific precision, and ESP also makes the claim that it is scientific. And here we have ESP, the idea that Raniere's moral vision can be true for all men for all times, a true sacred science that, according to Raniere, is a scientific discovery. So I'm going to stop reading it here, but I will link below for the full article.